Today's episode is about something that might make some of us, shift in our seats just a little bit. We're talking about polyamory. What is it really? And is it a relationship structure that more people are quietly curious about? For an Irish audience where we can still be a little bit private about our relationships, this might feel confronting, let's say, but curiosity doesn't mean commitment. So let's get some answers to some of those burning questions. I'm joined by polyamory educator Leanne to unpack what polyamory is, why some couples might choose it, and whether maybe, just maybe, it could be for you. Leanne, you're very welcome to the podcast. Hello.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
So let's start in simple terms. What is polyamory?
So I like to break it down using the etymology of the term. Polyamory. Poly means many, and amory from amor, right, means love. So many loves, multiple loves. And so what it means is it's a relationship style where everyone involved can have multiple loving relationships. And this is with the knowledge and consent of everyone involved. So everything is above board. There's no cheating going on. Everyone knows about it, is happy with it, and has the freedom to explore kind of multiple connections as they wish. That's what it means.
It is not cheating.
No.
Very important you said that. How is it different to open relationships?
Very good question. So open relationships and polyamory fall under like a larger umbrella of non-monogamy. Some people say ethical non-monogamy. I just say non-monogamy, which is, just broadly any relationship style that is not monogamy, right? And open relationships generally refer to relationships where there is one primary romantic relationship, but both parties can have outside sexual connections. So those are kept kind of casual. Maybe they do kind of one-night stands. Maybe they go to sex parties. Maybe they have the occasional threesome. But there is, an agreement that there is no romantic investment. Whereas in polyamory, that is allowed. You can engage in multiple romantic relationships if you so desire.
Okay, so it's not just about sex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Welcome to Just Between Us with me, Jennifer Zamparelli, sponsored by Kildare Village. Oh, yeah. Now, this podcast is mostly about fun indoors, but if you fancy a bit of al fresco, why not get out of the house and take a visit to Kildare Village with over 100 boutiques, 60 of which are exclusive in Ireland and 20 new brands to choose from. Visit Kildare Village, shopping that's so Irish. So what makes it different? Just break it down for people. What makes it completely different to cheating?
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing is that it is with, like I said, the knowledge and consent of everyone involved.
Okay.
Right? So people aren't just, kind of like tolerating it or like, pretending that they're fine with it. It's like, consent, right? Like it's not something that you get coerced into. It's something that you actively want, which I think can be a foreign concept to some people, because for some people they're just wired that way and they're just like, well, I could never imagine being okay with this. But like for people like myself, I've been doing this for 10 years, right? Like this has always come quite naturally to me. Like I want my partner to be with other people, and it's something that brings me a lot of joy. Like it's something that everyone is happy with. Like I think there is a stereotype that like, I don't know, I see this like on the internet all the time. Like one person is like really enthusiastic about it and is like dragging the other person along. And, I'm sure there are relationships like that, right? But in terms of how you're supposed to do it, like everyone's on board. Everyone's on board. And so there's a lot of communication involved. There's a lot of kind of checking in. There's a lot of kind of conversations you have about like, how would you feel about me doing this? Like let's kind of think about like our future, and do we want to take these steps, and do I want to do these with more than one person? Just open communication and honesty all around is basically the
vital.
The bedrock of this.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I'd say a lot of difficult conversations happen in the beginning, and maybe get easier and easier. And I definitely want to get into how it all started for you 10 years ago. Why do you think polyamory has become more visible in recent years? I've noticed it being spoken about a lot more. Maybe that's just Ireland. I don't know. But why do you think that is?
I mean, I have definitely noticed a trend. Like I've been doing a kind of polyamory education for about 5 years now, and there's definitely been an upward trend in interest in the relationship style. I think it's because of a number of things. I think people are more open-minded now. People are looking to try something different. I think the pandemic was a huge factor in this. Like I think it was like a big season of change for a lot of people, right? Like people, like being forced to like kind of work differently, like their romantic relationships might have changed quite a lot because of lockdown. People had the time to introspect and discover things about themselves and have the time to think, and yeah, I think people coming out of it were like, is this it? Like, is there, could I be doing something different with my life? Is this really how like what would make me happiest, and what would make my partner or the people in my life happiest. And I think the internet probably has a role to play in this as well. Like algorithms are constantly kind of recommending us content, and so people are exposed to things that they might not have otherwise.
Yeah.
And like I think the internet has been a great source of community for a lot of people to like talk to people who are like-minded, and so to recognize, oh, like I'm not alone, like it's not just me who thinks this way. So yeah, like I think that's probably.
I'm interested to know what is the thinking behind it. Like, what draws people to polyamory? Is it generally people who are in long-term relationships who find flaws or are missing something?
What you raised there is quite a common misconception. I think a lot of people assume that people try polyamory when their monogamous relationship is failing. But I would say opening up your relationship in order to save it when it's failing is very similar to like having a baby to save the marriage.
Okay.
You're bringing more people in, and it doesn't like make the mess any better. It just makes more mess, right? So it's not something that I would recommend typically. So in terms of what I guess healthy reasons, right? Like for people being drawn to polyamory, I think there's I think there's a curiosity, obviously. Like I think for a lot of people, it's about self-discovery and exploration, because if you're in a relationship with one person, like, of course, you have, you love each other, you're very committed to each other, you explore a lot of things together, you learn so much about yourself, but you are also somewhat limited by, the kind of interests that your partner has, the kind of sexual desires that your partner has, and I think like opening up the relationship can be a great way for both of you, right, to perhaps like explore with desires that you might not have been able to explore otherwise, or perhaps a sexuality that you haven't had the opportunity to explore. And so like I think there is that desire for novelty, for excitement, and in turn that ends up kind of positively affecting your relationship as well, because the better you know yourself, the more you can bring to your relationship, right? So that's one reason. I think another one is just people enjoy the flexibility. I think people enjoy that if they have a crush on someone, it's not like this taboo bad thing. It's like I can be open about it with my partner. It doesn't have to affect the security of our relationship. We can just be open about it, right? And people have different agreements on like how far they can go with different people, I guess. But yeah, like opening to fix things, I think only works in very limited circumstances. I think a very common reason is that if there's a difference in libido, right? Like if one person has a high sex drive, the other person has a lower sex drive, they might open up kind of for sexual reasons, but then they might do an open relationship as opposed to polyamory.
Okay,
right?
gotcha.
And that can relieve the pressure on the relationship, because it means that both parties can engage in as much or as little sex as they want to, and that feels comfortable and consensual. And then they also get their needs met elsewhere. Right. So, so that's another kind of relation.
And let's be clear, polyamory, it's not a new thing. Like historically, it's always been there, right?
Yeah. There have been various forms of non-monogamy. They might not have called it polyamory, but yeah, there have been various forms of non-monogamy throughout the ages. And, like kind of African tribes practiced it. And, like there's like an ancient kind of matrilineal like tribe in China, like who who do like walking marriages. There's so much like documentation of just non-monogamies, right? Like whether it's kind of polygamy, different forms, polyandry, polygyny, whatever. There's just kind of more like open structures, like in kind of pre-colonial eras. Like monogamy is probably newer, like monogamy as we currently know it.
Yeah.
In terms of not just having one relationship at a time, but also the enforcement of that structure and the validation of that structure, like financially, legally, and also otherwise. It is a relatively new invention. Yeah.
Going back 10 years to yourself, Leanne, how did you approach the situation with a partner? Or was this are you quite open about it? Or were you quite open about it from the get-go?
Yeah, so I started exploring non-monogamy when I was around 17. So I started pretty young. I think most people come into it a little bit older. But essentially at the time, me and my partner we were transitioning to a long distance relationship. And at that point in time, like he was going off to university in a different country. Like I was, going to be spending some time with my family. And we knew that we were going to be in very, very different locations geographically. And it just kind of came up very organically as a conversation. Like I'm very lucky that, it was a mutual thing. And, it was something that both of us like really felt quite enthusiastic about, which is not to say that it went well. I think most people's attempts at like relationships don't go well the first time, right? So, it was the same for us. But yeah, like we were basically like, okay, we don't want to break up. We don't want to cheat on each other and upset each other. But then we also are cognizant of the reality of the situation in that, we're not going to be able to spend a lot of time together. And there's going to be certain needs that won't be able to be met. There's going to be so many things that will limit ourselves from exploring about ourselves, like if we were to be in a monogamous relationship. So we were just like, well, let's start dating other people. And so, yeah, like, it was a very practical decision. It was a very logical decision for us. And I'm so lucky that it was mutual, because I think for a lot of people, I work with a lot of clients kind of one-to-one, and, like a very common question that comes up is like, I really want to explore this, but I don't know how to tell my partner without them taking it personally, right? Like, I think there's the assumption that like, oh, if you love other people, does that mean you don't love me anymore? Are you going to leave me? Am I not enough in some way? Like, what have I done wrong? And for me at the time, there wasn't that conversation. Like we were just like, this isn't personal. Like, this is just like, this just makes sense between us. And I haven't looked back since then. Yeah.
Okay. So when you go into new relationships, do you tell them that's you do? Okay. And have you ever been met with, okay, well, I'm out?
I mean, yeah, obviously, my dating pool, so to speak, has shrunk a lot because of this. The ironic thing about dating kind of more than one person is that there's kind of people out there who like want to do that with you, right? Like I think some people like they might be like, oh, I'll engage with you kind of casually until I find my forever person or whatever. And some people entertain that, some people don't. I personally kind of want to engage in long-term relationships with people. So if someone's just like, oh, I only just kind of want to be with you until I find the one, then I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's great, but that's not for me. So yeah, I'm very open about this, and when I use dating apps, it's like the first line in my dating profile. Like, I want to get it out of the way, right? Yeah. I don't want to waste people's time. I don't want to waste my own time. I want people to know that up front. And so if they don't like it, they can swipe left, right? And I never have to, engage in all of that. Yeah, like I think there is this misconception that like, like polyamorous people or non-monogamous people are just trying to like prey on monogamous people and trying to convert them. That's not what's going on. Like we just want to be left alone, and we want to engage with people who want to engage with us, right? Yeah. Like I'm not interested in convincing someone to understand me.
See. I'm listening to you and think, okay, well, it might be fun for me because I'm married now a long time. It might be fun for me to, date and have another relationship on the go, exhausting as that, sounds. But I don't know how I'd feel if he did it. I don't know how. I think the jealousy would kick in fairly quickly. So have you ever been jealous, or does that play a part?
I mean, jealousy can certainly happen in non-monogamous relationships. I think people feel it to different extents. Like, depends on your upbringing, depends on, your attachment style, depends on the traumas and insecurities you grew up with, right? And all of these things have the potential to get triggered even in a monogamous situation, right? Like people in monogamous relationships get jealous as well, so they're not kind of immune to it from the relationship style that they're in. But I think it's I always tell people it's like how much jealousy you feel doesn't determine whether or not you're able to practice polyamory. It's just what you do with the emotion that determines that, right? Because some people like they feel jealous and they're like, whoa, avoid, I'm gonna, like abort mission. Yeah. I'm not gonna do that, right? But then I think some other people might be like, oh, where is this emotion coming from? What could I learn from this? What kind of things are being uncovered here? And what am I really kind of worried about, right? Because I think jealousy can be caused by a number of things. It can be, it could be a fear of abandonment. It could be like a sense of betrayal, especially if you have kind of trauma from infidelity and in past relationships. That can really come up in a really big way because it feels similar, even if it's not the same. It could be, a comparison thing, competitiveness. It could be just like a sense of like a fear of missing out, my partner's having this wonderful experience. I really want that. There might be a sense of envy there. So there's so much to explore in that. And I think a lot of people are also drawn to polyamory for like the personal work that it I guess necessitates, because just a lot of stuff about yourself kind of comes up, and if you have the resources and the motivation to work through it, once you get to the other side, you're like, oh, actually, this isn't so bad, these emotions are things that I can manage, or these emotions just, become less intense over time. And not because you've numbed yourself to it, right? But because you've understood yourself, and you know, like, oh, my past fears are coming up, but like, this is not what's going on right now. My partner loves me. They're not going to leave me. They're going to come home to me, and it's fine, and them loving other people doesn't mean that like our love is diminished or is less unique or special in any way. So jealousy can certainly happen. It's just about how you manage it. And I think it's something that I think you can get away with not learning in a monogamous relationship, because I think those triggers and those threats don't come up in the same way. But
they still come up. They still come up. You can still feel jealousy.
And that is fine. Yeah,
monogamous relationship.
It's very normal to struggle at the start, especially if you were in a long-term monogamous relationship.
Yeah. Can I ask, how does it look like? I mean, I would say ground rules are important, or are they? Like, is it like, Dave, you can bring Trish around for dinner, or I never want to meet that person, or, whatever. How does it look like? Does it vary? Do rules have to be spoken about, and boundaries?
I mean, that's one of the wonderful things about polyamory. It's a choose your own adventure. You can customize it like however you want, right? So, there's, so the word for your partner's other partner is metamor. So, paramour is your partner, metamor, one kind of space removed, right? Like is your partner's partner. And so some people, want a lot of exposure to their metamors. They want to kind of hang out regularly. They want to get to know them. They want to be friends. They might even, be friends and hang out separate to the partner that they share, right? But some other people might be like, I just want to engage in one-on-one connections with people. Of course, I'm fine with them having other relationships, but that's their business. Group situations are really stressful for me. I don't want to deal with that. So yeah, it's a preference thing. And I think when two non-monogamous people meet, that is something that I think comes up as a point of negotiation. It's kind of how do you feel about these kind of agreements that I have with my other relationships? How do you feel about the amount of time that I would have, for you? Kind of how do our lives kind of fit around each other? What kind of connection can we create, given everything else that's going on in our lives, right? So it's very kind of customizable in that way, which I think can also be scary for some people, because especially if you have been operating with a monogamous blueprint and you're like, well, you get into a relationship, you go exclusive at some point, and then, you get married, you buy a house, you have kids, sometimes not necessarily in that order. Some people pick and choose from that, right? But that is the broad expectation. And that's called the relationship escalator. Just by the way, that term, the expectations for the steps of commitment that you traditionally do, that's called a relationship escalator. So kind of stepping off that escalator, right? And I guess negotiating and kind of communicating about what you actually want, the things that you are available for. Maybe you want to live alone and not want to move in with any partners. Maybe you kind of co-parent with one person, but you might want kind of kids with other people, or you might not. You might only kind of want the one kind of family life. You might want to live with multiple partners, right? It all really depends on, I guess, your individual vision, and then the people that come into your life. Similar to, you do this in monogamous relationships as well. I think people are having more and more discussions about okay, there's this blueprint, there's this relationship escalator, but do I actually want to be married? Do I actually want children? Do I actually want to live with a partner? Or, you know, if we live together, do we need to share a bedroom? Right? Like, people are having more conversations about that kind of thing. And so, you know, that flexibility, right? Like, once you start questioning these things, then it's like, oh, well, what else can we question? Like, what else can we customize?
And I suppose it's about, you know, you need to keep asking yourself those questions
Hmm.
because you change, your situation changes. And that's the thing in monogamous relationships. We tend to just have this blueprint and stick to it and never revisit the blueprint. And that's when problems occur. It does sound like in polyamorous relationships, you have to constantly look at yourself and what's happening, and which is a great thing because you're constantly asking yourself, what is enough for me? What do I actually want right here, right now? Even though it's ever evolving, which is amazing. So if someone is curious but unsure, what are the questions they should ask themselves first?
I mean, I think it's really important to ask yourself, like, why you're doing this. You know, like I said earlier, there are healthy and not so healthy motivations for engaging in polyamory. Like, I think if you're engaging it because, like, you're in a terrible relationship and you're looking for an escape, like, for everyone's sake, just end that relationship. You know, you know, it's kind of not worth kind of bringing that mess, you know, and bringing more people into that.
So
That's
don't
not
do it
fair.
to fix a relationship.
No, exactly. Yeah. Like, I think you have to really, if you are going into this, you know, from the standpoint of being in a long-term monogamous relationship, then, you know, you have to think about, like, like, the kinds of conversations that you're going to have with your partner about this, right? Because I think people really underestimate how big a change this is. You know, in the same way that, like, it's a big step when people have children, right? Like, it's like a huge change that you're introducing to your relationship. You know, your lifestyle, you know, and the people that you have in your life, like, they change overnight, right? Because your responsibilities are different. And so, in the same way, you have to make that transition to polyamory, and you might not know kind of what's on the other side, right? But just because something like might have difficulties and struggles along the way, like, it doesn't mean that it's not, like, rewarding or fulfilling to you. And so, you know, having that motivation of, like, you know, why the hell you're doing this in the first place, like, is really important, so that you stay anchored, right? Like, especially when things get hard. You know, I like to compare this to parenting a lot because I think that's kind of very accessible, especially for monogamous audiences. Like, if people are listening to this and you're a parent, right? Like, you know, you've probably had periods of time when you were like, God, like, parenting is really stressful and exhausting, and, you know, have I made the right decision, etc. But, you know, you probably had to think about why you wanted to have children, why you wanted to become a parent, and what you get out of it, and what is so gratifying for you. And polyamory is the same, right? Like, that's kind of what gets you through, and you know, makes it so rewarding for you. And so, yeah, and I think about, like, the vision, you know, like, what kind of relationship do you want to have? You know, like, do you want, well, like, you don't have to do polyamory. Do you want an open relationship where you just occasionally engage with other people or go to parties and stuff like that? Do you want to do this with your partner, right? Like, where you have threesomes and orgies and stuff? Or do you want to do this separately? You know, like, perhaps you want to explore a kink that your partner doesn't have, or you're bisexual and you want to explore that, right? And, you know, you may want to do that alone or with your partner. You know, people have different preferences, and that's kind of something to negotiate as well. And I think it's easier to think these things if you're, you know, if you're coming at this, like, as a single person, because then you don't have to, like, worry about a partner and kind of how they might feel and how differently they might feel from you. I think, like, when people make that transition from monogamy to polyamory, like, sometimes you both want non-monogamy, but you want different forms of it, or you want to do it in different ways, and that can create conflict. And, you know, that's kind of where you have discussions and try and compromise and things like that, right? And then finally, most importantly, you have to think about the existing connection that you have. Again, you know, if you are in an existing relationship, like, how good are your communication skills? Can you be honest with each other even when it's really, really hard? Like, how good are you at advocating for yourself and your needs and your boundaries, so you don't, like, disappear into yourself from, like, the peer pressure or whatever, which can happen, obviously, when there's multiple people involved. You know, like, how good are you at conflict resolution? You know, like, if feelings are hurt, if tensions are running high, like, how good are you at regulating yourself, or you know, staying regulated even if your partner isn't, and kind of coming back from that? Like, a lot of these relational skills are going to be challenged. So yeah, like, I guess my formula is, like, motivation, vision, connection. That's what I say. So yeah, like, why you're doing it, how you want to do it, and, you know, the kind of skills that you'll need to do it. And you think about this if you were single as well. You know, like if I were to meet someone new in my life, how would I advocate for myself? How would I communicate like what I'm looking for? How would I be able to distinguish between like whether someone is compatible with me or not? So yeah, it involves a lot of kind of self-knowledge and self-exploration.
Over the years, have you had to deal with judgment from friends and family?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. You know, like I'm very fortunate to live in Bristol, where there's quite a big like queer community there, and then you know by extension there's quite a big polyamorous community. I think the two communities they're not the same, obviously, but they do overlap quite a lot because I think historically, like queer people, they've not been afforded a lot of the privileges that kind of heteronormative relationships have, and so you know when you're deprived of that, then you go, oh well, you know, in what other ways can I kind of customize my relationships to you know that work for me and make me happiest, right? So there's a huge overlap between kind of the LGBTQIA plus community and the polyamorous community, but of course there are straight people who practice polyamory as well. So I'm very fortunate to live in a place where I don't get questioned about that so much, and you know I have a lot of kind of non-monogamous polyamorous people around me. But definitely I've gotten a lot of judgment from my family. I've gotten a lot of kind of judgment, you know, like in certain spaces. You know, like I think people have a very kind of knee-jerk reaction to it. You know, like they see something that's unfamiliar and then they think, and it makes them. I think for some people, it makes them question themselves and their own decisions. And then they feel very threatened by that. I've also had people go like, oh, I don't want to talk to you anymore because I'm scared that my partner will get ideas. And I'm a bit like, okay, well, if your partner was going to get ideas, they were going to do that anyway. Like, I don't know why you're blaming me for this.
Yeah.
You know, and ideally, right, like, if I were monogamous, I would want to be with someone who was 100% sure that they wanted to be monogamous, right? I wouldn't want to be with someone who was only monogamous because they didn't know there were other options. And so I think that in that sense, like polyamory education and just relationship education about like the different styles that exist and the options that are available to you, like benefits everyone, right? Because it means that monogamous people can engage with genuinely monogamous people, right? Who aren't just monogamous because they feel like they have to be, or that's because you know that's the only relationship style that they've been exposed to, and then they have like a midlife crisis later on or something, you know. Yeah, like it benefits everyone. You know, everyone gets to engage in a relationship style that actually feels authentic to them.
So what's your line? So when people question you on it, do you have one line that, you know, or do you go into it quite, you know, deeply? What do you say to people about your choice of relationships?
I mean, I think it really depends. I think if people are like, oh, I could never, then I'm like, okay, good for you. No one's asking you to, you know, or like if it's someone who, you know, I like is really quite offensive to me, right? Like if they're like, oh, I don't think this is true love, you know, I don't think that, you can, you know, I think that true commitment looks like this and this and this, and I'd be like, you know, Julie, you're on your third marriage. What are you talking about? You know, like, you know, like yeah, like I have kind of long-term relationships that have. You know, in the time that I've been non-monogamous, sorry, that have lasted longer than most people's monogamous marriages.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, you know, like I think commitment is not just about exclusivity and marriage, and just not having sex with other people. Like it's about, you know, the energy that you pour into your relationship as well. It's not just about who you keep out. And, you know, like plenty of people, you know, they might be exclusive, but they're not necessarily having a particularly connected relationship, right? So you know, and that's the thing that kind of polyamory does as well. Like it kind of keeps you on your toes, right? Because if you're kind of both like dating other people, if you're all dating other people, and you know you have that kind of like freedom and flexibility, you know, then you become much more intentional with the time that you do spend with your partners.
For sure.
Right? You're not just existing around each other because you live together or share a household or whatever. You know, you're actively pouring time and energy into it and being like, right, I want to make this connection as special, right, like as all my other connections are, in their own unique way. And you don't end up treating your partner as the default, and you don't take them for granted, which is not to say that all monogamous relationships do that, but I think they do run a risk of falling into that trap a bit more.
So is polyamory a personality type or simply a relationship structure that people choose, do you think?
The age-old question. I think it can be both. Okay. I mean, for me personally, like I experience it as like a sort of orientation, you know, especially since I came into it so young. Like it's just what has always felt very natural to me. And even I was in one monogamous relationship when I was like 16 or 17, and it was okay. It was fine. But like even then, we would often talk about like crushes that we had on other people and things like that. So like it wasn't that monogamous. But there are some people who kind of come into it later in life, and like they might experience it as like an awakening, or they might experience it as, well, I've done this for a while now, and now I want to do something different. I think a really prominent example of this is what's her face, Carol Vorderman.
Yeah.
Like she, like I think a year or two ago, like she kind of came out about like being non-monogamous. She was in a very long term, I think a couple decades long monogamous marriage. And now, she's got multiple boyfriends and she's kind of doing something different with her life, So it really depends. It's like, maybe you're in a different chapter of your life. Maybe this is who you were always meant to be. Maybe you came into it like really young and then you change your mind later on. Yeah, like lots of people come into it in a different way. So I wouldn't say there's a hard and fast thing. There is some debate about whether monogamy is actually like an orientation like in itself, because of all the societal pressure and the enforcement of this relationship structure. But like I think as much as the data shows that like technically speaking, like humans are not biologically monogamous. We are like non-monogamous.
Beings, yeah.
Right. Even though we kind of pair bond with people and we kind of form kind of long-term commitments with people, like infidelity happens often enough that like we have to have all these we have like it's mentioned in the 10 Commandments and whatever. And I feel like if it came naturally to us, there wouldn't be so much enforcement about not cheating. But I'm always like, well, biology isn't destiny, right? There are some people for which like they are into one person and they just do not look at other people in that way. And that's great, but I do think that there are more people than one would think who would want to explore a non-monogamy. And I mean, you said, you just said so yourself, Tara, you said like, well, I would like to kind of explore with other people, but, the jealousy, I'm kind of thinking about my partner being with other people is what stops me.
Yeah.
And like, this is something that I encounter a lot, right? Like people who are monogamous, not because they want to be with one partner, and there are some people who genuinely do want to be monogamous because they do just want to be in one relationship. But for like a lot of people that I speak to, it's more because they can't handle their partner being with other people. And so they go, well, if I can't handle that, then it's only fair that I be monogamous as well. So there we go.
Okay. So if anybody is listening and just feels curious, but also a little bit embarrassed about that curiosity, what would you say to them?
I mean, you said something really interesting at the start of this episode. You said curiosity is not commitment. And I really like that. I think it's good to explore. I think it's good to experiment. I think it's good to discover new things about yourself. And as long as you're open with people like, hey, this is something new I'm trying out, I'm not sure how I feel about this yet, right? Then, people can sign up to that, right? Like, and understand what they're getting into. So yeah, like if you are curious about it and, you like have a partner or kind of partners who, are on board with that, then, absolutely try and go for it, right? Like, do your research. Like it is, like I said, it's a big transition to make, especially from long-term monogamy. Or even if you aren't in a long-term monogamous relationship, you might have kind of grown up with a lot of kind of societal conditioning in general. That's definitely going to come into play kind of when you start doing something different. And yeah, like just kind of do your research. There's lots of books available.
Ask yourself questions, I suppose, is one thing I got from you, is ask yourself those questions.
Yeah, ask yourself those questions. Yeah. And like I make a lot of content online that's kind of very like that's free and accessible to anyone who wants to learn more about that kind of stuff. Like having that kind of free content online is like really important to me. So that people are just kind of exposed to that and might kind of learn something about themselves. And don't be afraid to make mistakes, as long as you learn from those mistakes, right? Like this is where the conflict resolution and repair skills like come into play. You learn more about yourself and your boundaries and your needs, and over time you learn to advocate for them better. And yeah, like it's all just about like self-awareness and self-knowledge. Yeah.
And have fun.
Have fun. Absolutely.
Leanne, thank you so much. I'm Jennifer Zambrelli, and thanks for listening to Just Between Us.